All right, so today we're going to deep dive into
Oh, this is going to be good.
the chaotic world, the late Roman Empire.
Yeah.
And specifically, we're looking at the reign of Emperor Maximin, as told by Edward Gibbon in his, masterpiece, The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire.
It's a classic.
Yeah, you might think hereditary monarchies,
Right.
passing power down through families, would bring stability.
You'd think so, yeah.
And sometimes they do.
Sometimes.
But in Rome, after the Senate's influence faded, things got messy.
Yeah.
It became a power grab,
Oh, yeah.
a free-for-all for the throne.
Big time.
And that's where our guy Maximin steps into the spotlight.
He bursts onto the scene, really.
Yeah.
His entrance is pretty dramatic. Imagine a giant barbarian wrestler
Whoa.
catching the emperor's eye.
Like out of nowhere.
That's how Maximin's story begins.
That's amazing.
But his rise was as brutal as it was swift.
Wow. Gibbon describes him as this towering figure,
Oh, yeah.
over 8 feet tall, with superhuman strength.
Gibbon really lays it on thick, you know?
Yeah, we're talking wrestling down
That's
16 trained soldiers in a row.
almost hard to believe, right?
It's crazy.
It is, it is. He had a fascinating background, too.
Oh, yeah?
His father was a Goth, his mother an Alani,
Wow.
giving him this mixed barbarian heritage in a world that very much valued Roman lineage.
So that probably played a part in his story.
Oh, absolutely.
Interesting.
He rose through the military ranks through sheer force and valor.
Just a natural
Powerhouse.
Yeah. But here's where things get interesting, right?
Oh, yeah.
This insecurity about his background festered,
Uh-huh.
and Maximin transformed into a ruthless tyrant.
It's like a classic,
Yeah.
rise and fall kind of,
Yeah.
a tragic figure in a way.
Yeah.
He was paranoid about anyone who knew about his humble beginnings.
So he had to, cover his tracks.
Had to eliminate any threat.
Yeah.
He executed anyone suspected of conspiracy, often without a trial.
So much for Roman law.
Right. Just imagine the fear.
I can't imagine.
That must have gripped the Roman elite.
Yeah.
One chilling example Gibbon gives
Yeah.
is the execution of Magnus,
Oh,
a
Magnus.
senator,
Yeah.
along with 4,000 others,
4,000.
simply on suspicion.
Oh, wow. And it wasn't just individuals, right?
No.
He plundered the public treasury, confiscated funds meant for the people, and even turned against his own benefactors.
The people who helped him rise to power.
Wow, talk about biting the hand that feeds you.
Right.
Now, you might be wondering
Yeah.
how the Roman people tolerated such a tyrant.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
But Gibbon suggests that as long as Maximin focused his cruelty on the elite,
Mm-hmm.
the general populace didn't mind too much.
It's a bit like, hey, as long as it's not me, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
But that all changed when Maximin's greed
Okay.
extended to everyone's wealth.
Whoa.
He began seizing funds from cities,
Wow.
the money that kept things running, like grain supplies.
Oh, that's not good.
And even public entertainment.
Oh, people love their entertainment.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when the outrage hit.
Yeah.
And it led to a rebellion.
Okay, so finally, people had enough.
Enough is enough?
Yeah. Leading that rebellion was Gordianus, an elderly proconsul of Africa, along with his son.
An interesting pair.
Yeah.
What's interesting about Gordianus is that he was incredibly wealthy.
Oh, wow.
Think owning the mansion of Pompeii, luxurious villa, the whole 9 yards.
So he had it all.
He did.
But what drew people to him
was
that he represented a return to a more virtuous age.
Oh,
A
yeah.
complete opposite to Maximin's brutality.
Night and day.
So they were looking for a savior, someone to usher in a golden age
Yeah.
after living under Maximin's iron fist.
It's understandable.
And the Senate,
Yeah.
sensing the shifting tides
Yeah.
and emboldened by the rebellion,
They saw an opportunity?
finally took a stand. They declared the Gordians emperors
Bold move.
and branded Maximin a public enemy.
That's a big statement.
Think about that. They finally found their courage.
You were backed into a corner.
Right.
They had to do something.
Yeah, it's a risky move, right?
Ew.
They were practically powerless under Maximin.
You were, yeah.
Yeah.
It was. They even appointed 20 lieutenants to defend Italy
Wow, that's a lot.
and actively sought support from other provinces.
So they're really putting it all on the line.
They are.
Yeah.
It's a moment where you see the embers of defiance flickering back to life.
Yeah. So there's hope.
A glimmer of hope.
A glimmer.
Yeah.
Tragically, though, the Gordians' rebellion was short-lived.
Ah.
They were defeated by Capelianus, the governor of Mauritania, and both father and son met grim ends.
It's a sad story.
Yeah.
The rebellion's failure was a huge blow.
Yeah.
But it ignited a flame of resistance that would eventually engulf Maximin himself.
So it wasn't all for nothing?
Not at all.
Yeah. News of the rebellion sent Maximin into a rage.
Oh, yeah.
Gibbon describes him as a wild beast.
He was furious.
Yeah. He delayed his response.
Mm-hmm.
But when he finally marched on Italy, his intent was clear.
No.
Crush any and all opposition.
Total annihilation.
The Senate, understanding of the threat they were facing, adopted a scorched earth strategy.
Wow. Desperate times.
Yeah. They destroyed anything that could aid the enemy, hoping to buy time and slow Maximin's advance.
It's a risky strategy.
Very risky. And that brings us to the Siege of Aquileia.
Oh, yeah.
A key turning point in Maximin's downfall.
This is where things start to unravel for him.
Yeah.
Aquileia was well fortified.
Okay.
And its citizens were incredibly resilient.
Oh, wow.
They believed their god, Balbinus, was fighting alongside them.
So they had faith on their side.
They did.
Can you imagine being trapped
I can't even imagine.
within a besieged city,
Yeah.
knowing a tyrant like Maximin is at your gates?
It must have been terrifying. They were outnumbered and outmatched, yet they held on.
Wow.
They even repelled attacks using artificial fire to destroy Maximin's siege engine.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So they're resourceful.
They were.
But as the siege dragged on, things in Maximin's camp grew desperate.
Oh, yeah.
Food became scarce.
Disease spread, and the soldiers, cut off from news, started questioning their leader.
Doubts creep in.
Yeah.
Morale plummeted, and discontent festered.
But things are falling apart.
They are.
And it was in this crucible of despair that Maximin's own Praetorian Guard,
Oh, wow.
the elite soldiers meant to protect him,
Yeah.
turned against him.
The ultimate betrayal.
They feared for their families back in Rome
Understandable.
and were disgusted by Maximin's cruelty.
So they had a change of heart.
Yeah?
They assassinated him in his tent, along with his son and advisors.
Oh, wow.
Their heads were displayed on spears, a brutal end for a brutal man.
Wow, so that's the end of Maximin?
The relief that must have swept through Rome.
I bet.
But of course, things don't end there.
Never do.
Maximin's death left a power vacuum, and the Senate, eager to seize control,
They saw their chance.
appointed two new emperors, Maximus, the stern soldier, and Balbinus, the refined orator.
Interesting pairing.
For a brief moment,
Yeah.
it would seem like a new dawn for Rome, a chance to restore a semblance of order and stability.
A glimmer of hope again.
Yeah.
But as we'll see in part 2,
Oh, no.
the Praetorian Guard had other plans.
Oh.
The battle for control of the Roman Empire was far from over.
Here we go again.
It's not.
Buckle up.
All right.
Welcome back. When we left off, the tyrant Maximin was dead.
Right.
And the Senate had appointed these two new emperors, Maximus and Balbinus. It seemed like a fresh start, but the journey to stability was far from smooth.
Yeah. You mentioned those Praetorian Guards had other plans.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't too thrilled about the Senate calling the shots, were they? Not at all. The Praetorians, they resented the Senate's authority.
Yeah.
Imagine being a soldier, accustomed to taking orders from an emperor, someone you helped put in power.
Yeah.
Suddenly, these senators, these civilians, are trying to control things.
Yeah, so there's this simmering tension between the military and the civilian government.
It was a conflict waiting to explode. Maximus headed off to deal with remnants of Maximin's army.
So someone's got to do it.
Right, leaving Balbinus in Rome to manage the city.
Seems sensible.
It seemed sensible at the time,
Yeah.
but there was already a rift forming between the two emperors.
Uh-oh, so a bit of a power struggle.
According to Gibbon,
Okay.
Maximus, the hardened soldier, looked down on Balbinus as a pampered aristocrat.
Oh, I see.
And Balbinus saw Maximus as rough around the edges,
Yeah.
lacking the refinement needed to govern.
So a clash of personalities.
Oh, yeah.
The strong, silent type versus the sophisticated, intellectual. Not exactly a recipe for a successful partnership.
And it had devastating consequences.
Okay, what happened?
While Rome was distracted by the Capitoline Games,
Okay.
a group of Praetorian assassins stormed the imperial palace,
Oh,
catching both emperors completely off guard.
you'd think emperors would have some serious security.
They were protected,
Yeah.
But Gibbon suggests they were too far apart in the palace to help each other.
Oh, wow.
They were suspicious of one another, wasting precious time arguing instead of defending themselves.
It's almost Shakespearean. Two emperors brought down by their own mistrust.
Yeah.
And the ruthlessness of their guards.
The Praetorians dragged Maximus and Balbinus through the streets, stripping them of their clothes and humiliating them publicly.
It's awful.
It was a brutal display meant to send a clear message.
What message?
The Senate was powerless against the military.
So in a matter of months, Rome lost 4 emperors.
It's incredible.
Talk about a leadership crisis.
What happened next?
Yeah, did the Praetorians just install their own puppet ruler?
They did.
Okay.
But they chose someone with a name that resonated with the Roman people.
Okay, who?
Gordian III.
Gordian III.
The grandson of the elder Gordian who'd led the rebellion against Maximin.
Ah, so using the Gordian name would lend some legitimacy to their power grab.
Exactly. He was only 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
A young boy thrust onto the throne in the midst of all this chaos.
Imagine the pressure.
I know.
A teenager suddenly becomes emperor of Rome.
What chance did he have?
Yeah.
He was immediately surrounded by his mother's eunuchs.
Oh, no.
Gibbon describes them as pernicious vermin of the East.
Oh, that's not a good sign.
These were schemers who isolated Gordian, manipulating him and selling off positions of power for their own gain.
So even though Rome was rid of a tyrant, corruption was still rampant.
It's hard to escape.
What happened to young Gordian III?
Luckily for Gordian, he escaped the clutches of the eunuchs.
Okay.
Thanks to a remarkable man named Misitheus.
Misitheus. Another ambitious general. A cunning politician.
No, a scholar and a teacher of rhetoric.
Wait, a teacher? How did a scholar end up advising an emperor?
It seems Gordian was drawn to Misitheus' wisdom.
Okay.
He married Misitheus' daughter.
Oh, wow.
And recognizing his father-in-law's intelligence, appointed him to key positions.
Like what?
Including Praetorian Prefect.
Wow, so the scholar became the power behind the throne.
It's an interesting twist.
Yeah, I bet they ruffled some feathers.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Gibbon mentions letters between Gordian and Misitheus that give us a glimpse into their relationship.
Oh, interesting.
In one, Misitheus congratulates Gordian for breaking free from the eunuchs.
Good for him.
And Gordian, in turn, acknowledges the mistakes of his early reign.
Oh, wow.
Lamenting how hard it is to discern truth when surrounded by self-serving advisors.
That's got to be tough.
It sounds like a genuine bond.
Yeah.
Built on respect and a desire for good governance.
A breath of fresh air.
It seems so.
Did it bring stability to Rome?
For a time, yes.
Oh.
Misitheus proved capable, encouraging Gordian to take a more active role in defending the empire.
Oh, okay.
When the Persians invaded Mesopotamia, Misitheus persuaded Gordian to leave the comforts of Rome and lead the army himself.
Wow, a fighting emperor.
He was young and eager.
Yeah, did Gordian prove himself as a military leader?
He achieved initial success.
Okay.
Pushing the Persians back from the Euphrates to the Tigris.
That's impressive.
Gibbon attributes these victories to Misitheus,
Okay.
who ensured the army was well supplied and disciplined.
But there's a but coming, isn't there?
Sadly, yes.
Okay.
Tragedy struck when Misitheus died during the campaign.
Oh.
It might have been dysentery, but poisoning was also suspected.
Suspicious.
His death left a void.
Yeah.
And someone even more ambitious was ready to fill it.
Here we go again. Another power-hungry manipulator stepping into the spotlight.
His name was Philip, an Arab who,
Yeah.
let's just say, didn't exactly have a spotless past.
From a questionable past to emperor of Rome, that's quite a leap.
Philip was cunning and ruthless. He quickly rose to become Praetorian Prefect.
Okay.
And saw Gordian's vulnerability as his chance.
Another Praetorian uprising.
Philip was more subtle.
Okay.
He engineered a food shortage in the army camp, blaming it on Gordian's inexperience.
Oh, classic move.
Yeah.
Create a problem, then present yourself as the solution.
It worked perfectly.
Yeah.
The soldiers, tired and convinced that Gordian was incapable, turned against their emperor.
Poor Gordian III. From puppet emperor to betrayed leader.
It's a tragic story.
A tragic end to what seemed like a promising reign.
A monument was erected near the spot where he was murdered.
Oh, wow.
Marking a sad chapter in the ongoing saga of the Roman Empire.
And with Gordian out of the way, Philip, the ambitious Praetorian Prefect, took the throne.
He seized the opportunity.
I'm guessing his reign wasn't all peace and harmony.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
But Philip was clever.
Okay.
He knew he needed to legitimize his rule, to win over the people. So he decided to stage a grand spectacle. The secular games.
The secular games, what were those? Some kind of ancient Roman Super Bowl?
Think more of a massive religious festival, celebrating Roman tradition and identity.
Okay.
These games were held only once every 100 years.
Wow.
Making them incredibly rare and significant.
So Philip was using this once-in-a-century event for a PR stunt.
He knew how to play the game.
Yeah, to boost his popularity.
Exactly.
Did it work?
To some extent, yes.
Okay.
The games were a dazzling display of pomp and ceremony.
Oh, I bet.
Music, dancing, elaborate sacrifices to appease the gods and ensure Rome's continued prosperity.
Wow, so they really went all out.
They did.
But if you looked beyond the spectacle, you're saying there were troubling signs.
All was not well in the Roman Empire.
It's like throwing a lavish party to cover up the fact that the foundations of your house are crumbling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a crucial point Gibbon makes.
Okay.
Despite outward appearances, cracks were appearing beneath the surface.
This feels like a good place to pause and reflect on what we've learned.
Okay.
We've seen a brutal tyrant fall, the brief hope offered by the Gordians, the Senate's failed attempt at control, and finally another ambitious figure seizing power through manipulation and deceit.
It's a recurring theme.
It's a story filled with intrigue, violence, and shifting alliances.
A turbulent time.
Where do we go from here? We're back. And we're continuing our deep dive into the Roman Empire as told by Edward Gibbon.
Yeah.
We've seen emperors come and go, betrayals, power struggles, and this constant fight for control of this vast empire.
It never ends.
As we enter the reign of Philip, who took the throne from young Gordian III. You start to see these cracks in Roman society getting wider.
Yeah, the facade is starting to crumble.
The secular games.
Right.
While a magnificent spectacle, were almost like a distraction from a deeper decay.
It's like you're throwing this lavish party, but the foundation of your house is crumbling beneath your feet.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
That's the situation Philip finds himself in.
Right.
Gibbon points to several factors contributing to this decline.
Okay.
One is the dwindling population of true Romans.
Okay, so the demographics are changing.
Exactly.
Centuries of conquest and expansion had changed the makeup of the original Roman citizenry.
It wasn't the same Rome it used to be.
So it's becoming less about shared heritage and more about who holds the power.
Exactly. And that power was shifting more and more into the hands of the military.
The military?
Specifically, a mercenary army.
Mercenaries.
Drawn from the edges of the empire and beyond.
So not the classic Roman legions?
No, these soldiers weren't the citizen legions of Rome's early days.
Right.
Their loyalty was to their commanders.
Okay.
And the promise of riches.
That sounds like a recipe for instability.
It was a dangerous game.
How can an emperor maintain control when the army is more interested in personal gain than the good of the empire?
It was a constant balancing act.
Yeah.
Philip, with his own questionable background, was particularly skilled at this.
Okay.
He knew he had to keep the army happy, even if it meant rewarding them lavishly and overlooking their excesses.
That's playing with fire.
It was a risky strategy.
So internally, you've got a deluded citizenry and an unreliable army. What about external threats?
Oh, yeah.
Were there enemies at the gates?
Absolutely.
Oh.
As internal divisions weakened the empire, barbarians at its borders grew bolder.
They saw an opportunity?
They did.
To exploit Rome's vulnerabilities?
Precisely. The pressure was mounting.
And the legions, once the guardians of Roman security, were stretched thin.
They were spread too thin.
So with all these problems swirling around him, what does Philip do?
He focuses on self-preservation.
Okay.
He needs to solidify his claim to the throne and project strength to his rivals within the empire and the enemies beyond its borders.
So it seems like many Roman emperors were more concerned with holding on to power than fixing the problems that were tearing the empire apart.
That's a sharp observation.
In Philip's case, his focus on self-preservation ultimately led to his downfall.
It's a familiar story.
Yeah.
He became entangled in internal power struggles and was challenged by a rival general, Decius, with the support of the legions.
Okay.
Decius defeated and killed Philip, ending his short reign.
Another emperor falls.
It's a cycle of violence.
It seems like violence and instability were becoming the norm in Roman politics.
It was a turbulent time.
Yeah.
This pattern of internal strife, coupled with growing external pressures, would continue to plague the Roman Empire.
Right.
It set the stage for its eventual collapse.
What a journey through this pivotal period in Roman history.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
We've covered so much in this deep dive.
Yeah.
From Maximin's tyrannical reign to the rise and fall of several short-lived emperors.
It's a whirlwind of events.
It's a story of ambition, betrayal, and an empire teetering on the brink.
A cautionary tale.
So what can we learn from all of this?
That's the big question.
What does the story of Maximin and the turbulent times that followed tell us?
I think one crucial lesson is that even the most powerful empires are not immune to decay.
Right.
Internal divisions, corruption, and a failure to address underlying problems can ultimately lead to decline and collapse.
It reminds you that power, no matter how absolute it seems, is fragile.
It is.
The choices made by those in power have far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely.
Not just for themselves, but for generations to come.
It's a sobering thought.
Maximin's reign, though brutal and short, exposed the deep flaws that were already eating away at the Roman Empire's foundation.
He was a symptom of a larger problem.
His successors, despite their best intentions, couldn't stop the decline.
Yeah, it was too late.
It makes you wonder, what if Maximin hadn't been consumed by his insecurities and desire for revenge?
Right.
Could he have been a different kind of emperor?
It's an interesting thought.
Or was Rome's fate already sealed?
That's a question for the historians.
I encourage you to delve deeper into this fascinating period of history.
There's so much more to explore.
There are countless stories waiting to be discovered,
each offering a unique perspective on the rise and fall of one of history's most influential empires.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Roman Empire.
We hope you found it insightful and engaging.
Until next time.
Keep exploring, keep questioning,
and keep learning.
Thank you.